Well, my name is Michelle Jan Canish. I'm a member of the Contemplative Outreach Centering Prayer Group Facilitators Support Team. I'm joining you from my home in Seattle, Washington, and it's such a joy to welcome each of you today to this enrichment gathering for Centering Prayer Group Facilitators. Seeing you all come on the screen is just such a wonderful sight, especially on an early Saturday morning in my part of the world. We notice that we have people from 31 states in the United States and 7 countries. I just feel so blessed to be a part of this community. And we're all coming together because we share the gift of centering prayer. Well, I will be introducing the other members of the team and providing an overview of the day in a bit, but first we are going to go into our 20-minute period of centering prayer. And Josie Garnham, a member of our team, will lead us for this time of prayer. Josie?
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. So we'll go into 20 minutes of centering prayer. I will start with a vestibule, and then the gong will sound, which will take you into centering sit. And after 20 minutes, a gong will sound to bring you back in. May we become bearers of joy. We who are invited to share in the cosmic dance. May we walk in faith all the days of our life, confident in your divine presence, even in times of trouble, and with assurance for what is and all that is to be. May we have faith in the unfolding of our lives and the radical trust in the universe.
Thank you so much, Josie, for the beautiful prayers. I would like to just briefly have a call to the Holy Spirit. O Lord, we are gathered here in your love with the hope that your Spirit will teach each one of us, drawing us deeper into that love. We pray for the presence of your wisdom that guides us and draws us to you, and for openness in our hearts to hear what you wish to say to us. May we be open and receptive through Christ our Lord. Amen. And again, welcome, 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 everyone. We're so happy to be here today, sharing our commitment and our calling to serve in sharing the gift of centering prayer. So I'd like to introduce our team. We just had Josie Garnham, who is joining us from Olney, Maryland. Eileen McCaffrey-Schumann is in Whippany, New Jersey. She tells us it's about 30 or so miles outside of New York City, I believe, near Morristown, New Jersey. For those of us who want to picture her sitting where she is. Jim Bailey is in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And Bob Mishka is joining us from Denver, Colorado. There he is. Sorry if I went through that too fast. Now what I'd like to do is take a look at what we're going to be doing today. I'll share the agenda with you. So in our 2 hours together, we will have several talks about the tools and information available to you in your facilitating role. They will be about 15 minutes each. First, we will hear from Eileen about guidelines and agreements that groups can develop together and how these can help the group function smoothly and deal with challenges that might arise. We will then go into small groups to allow you time to share with each other how you have dealt with difficult situations and had what you consider a good outcome. We will come back together and have time for a few groups to report back to the full group, and then we will have a short 5-minute break. Before hearing from Jim on the variety of resource materials available to facilitators and centering prayer groups and how to find those materials. We follow this with a period for questions. We kindly ask that you please hold your questions until that time. You can jot them down during the presentation so you don't forget, and then you can bring them to the Q&A session. Or you can put them in the chat, and we will do our best to get to as many as we can. I'd also like to note that the presentations address many of the questions that were sent to us in advance. And then Bob will complete the program with some reflections about servant leadership and share a video clip of Father Thomas Keating. I would like to take a moment before turning it over to Eileen to comment on the key role facilitators of centering prayer groups play. The centering prayer group lends support to members and inspires one another to practice fidelity to their personal practice of centering prayer throughout the week. Father Keating has said that the unique character of small group practice makes the facilitator's job the most important service one can provide within contemplative outreach. The most important service. You can always find someone who's good at public speaking to come in and wow the crowd with the fascinating subject of contemplative prayer. But it is the facilitator who is there week after week, growing with the group, sharing his or her own experience as part of group formation, support, encouragement, accountability, and transformation itself. Whether we are new to facilitating a group or have long experience, the center of and most important preparation is our commitment to our centering practice twice a day. To invite others to move deeply into their spiritual journey, I must first move myself. I must listen deeply, speak out of my experience, view the group as one in being. As Mary Mrzowski put it, a successful facilitator should be on the same faith journey as other group members. No one wants to feel divided into classes or levels because of a leader who has all the answers. Humility before God and one another creates mutuality in relationship. She continued, a facilitator who genuinely offers hospitality creates a warm, welcoming experience and provides the group with an island of safety. We recognize that each of us has unique gifts. Not everyone will do it the same way. Trusting in the guidance of the Holy Spirit is important. And we know that the good accomplished is the gift of the Holy Spirit. So now it's time to turn it over to you, Eileen. Good morning again.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So let me share my slides here for you. Oh, my apologies. Let me go back. Okay. So as indicated, let me just get rid of this too. Okay. All right. thank you all for being here and for sending questions and your challenges, etc. So this presentation hopefully addresses or tries to address the many of you who had questions about what to do with a challenging group dynamic, essentially. Individuals who maybe try to control the group, who perhaps are very needy or going through a very difficult time themselves, whatever. So you all know what that's all about. And really, the bottom line isn't that you need to be an expert in group dynamics. I certainly am not, but we have some suggestions for how to build group consensus. And if the group has agreed organically themselves on what we're all about, then hopefully they can come back to that. So, why are we not going down here? Okay, I apologize. I don't know what's wrong here. Okay, there we go. All right. So these are our brief topics. These could all be presentations in themselves. So they are going to be dealt with very briefly here, but just to give an overview, I do feel they all hang together. What do we facilitate is the ground of the group purpose and guidelines for sharing, and then how we respond to questions, how we listen to each other, and then how you take care of yourself to do all this, because it's difficult. So what do we facilitate? When I first heard this question when in training to join this group, I had to pause and think about that. So Contemplative Outreach's suggestion and our team's and my personal suggestion is we facilitate faith sharing. So what is it not? It is not a theological discussion. People, I think, come to groups like ours sometimes and expect a Bible study is one possible expectation. Discussion of doctrine, not what we're about. Wonderful things, that's not what we do here. It is not an information model. Yes, we share personally. However, faith sharing is not an answer to problems. It is not a therapy group. Doesn't mean we don't share personally, but that is, again, not the primary purpose of the group. So what is faith sharing? Faith sharing is my experience of God in my personal history or journey of life. It is a mystery model. And what does faith sharing require? Reverential listening in prayerful silence. So my experience is the content and is not discussable or debatable. So to me, this really is the bottom line of why we recommend no crosstalk, no comment on others' comments, because we're not just debating doctrine. Who is the authority on one's personal experience, right? So then, group purpose and guidelines for sharing. So in my group, when we did this, the other facilitator and myself just said, this is a recommendation that groups do this. We had been a group for a long time. Honestly, I was not presented with this material until I joined this team. So hopefully you're well ahead of me here. And the ideal is to do this early. However, we did it in a long established group. We just said that, what do you think about this? The group bought into it. So we said, okay, for the next few weeks after centering prayer and Lectio, instead of doing a book or whatever the resource material we might have discussed, we will work on we'll agree on a purpose and guidelines for how we listen and speak with one another. So just ask people to think about, why do you come, right? Everyone's time is precious. We all have many demands on our time. Why are they here? In the case of the group in which I participate, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Why do you come? So a purpose is not intended to be a straitjacket, but more a ground to which you can return. And again, if the group has agreed and developed it on their own, then it can help avoid conflict later on to return to it and remind about it. So we've talked about this. So this is a sample group purpose from the Facilitator Handbook, which is available online and which Jim will discuss later. We gave out a couple of samples to our group and asked them, think about it, talk about it, and then we developed our own wording. So this is one from the Facilitator Handbook. To support the centering prayer practice in the context of a small community that prays together and participates in faith sharing. So The content, I think you will find, of all of these is fairly similar. It's sort of the style to reflect your group, hopefully. So this is the group with whom I pray. And we all came up with this wording together. Why we gather. The purpose of our group is to consent to the presence and action of God within each of us through the practice of centering prayer, and to nurture an open, supportive, and inclusive environment. All are welcome. So people really feel that a hallmark of our group is inclusivity and being welcoming. So that is how that got added. This appears on the website on the web page that the parish who hosts us graciously lets us have. So this is what people would find if they come to the web page for our ministry. So guidelines, same thing. Guidance is to establish guidelines early, but no time like the present, always a good time to try and do it. Again, we started by giving each member a copy of sort of sample guidelines, of which there are multiples in the Facilitator handbook. At the time, I believe I also sort of scanned the web for other groups' guidelines and picked some that I liked and gave out as samples. Have an open discussion. You want people to come to this themselves. So you're, rather than saying, what do you think? Why don't we just adopt this and have them rubber stamp it? They're not going to feel ownership, right? So discuss what it means. Does it work for our group? And keep them under a dozen. If they don't want it, it's not going to work, right? So why do they not like something, right? Just really be open to anything people have to say. Keep it short as much as possible. The ideal is for consensus to emerge, and then you need to maintain them. It is important to reshare and sort of re-get people's consent. And do they still think that this works for our group? Of course, all people leave and come new to the group who perhaps were not involved in formation of the guidelines, so they need to be familiar as well. So again, this is a sample from the Facilitator handbook. So group covenant. As a member of this community, I listen to others from my heart. I'm just going to read the bolded bullets. Again, this is in the handbook. I listen to others with a non-judgmental attitude. I listen to others with love. I listen to others with respect for their freedom. I listen to others with shared trust. I speak from my own unique experience. Together we seek together we seek understanding, not agreement. So what I noticed about this set of guidelines is there are 5 I listens and 1 I speak. So this is again the group with whom I pray. This is what we developed, and this is on the webpage for our ministry at our church. We try to, because none of us is perfect, right? Begin at the agreed upon time, accept one another as we are, listen attentively and open-mindedly without interruption, refrain from judgment, allow for silence within discussions, offer caring and support as God heals, enable anyone to share or remain silent within the confines of our meeting time, and very important, we keep our sharing in the group absolutely confidential. So hopefully reassuring to people that they're safe here. So again, our group, we really try to prioritize saying things positively as opposed to negatively, what we do as opposed to what we don't do. All right. Responding to questions. So we don't answer questions as much as we guide discussion around questions. It was a great relief to me to find that contemplative outreach does not view facilitators as the experts, because I would not be doing this job if I thought that that was required. You're literally a facilitator, right? The group doesn't happen without members, but it also doesn't happen without facilitation, right? So, in many questions, there's no answer to, right? The Spirit has to answer. So, but when you hear a question, first confirm you've heard it correctly, because we all hear through our own filters. Validate the question, and ask for their answer, because often people have got something that they think and they're just not confident in it, or they're not sure, or they would really prefer it not be the answer, right? We've all been there. It's okay to say you don't know. You can refer to books by Father Keating or another authority in contemplative prayer, or someone with more prayer experience than you have. Often there is more than one answer, right? These are not frequently objective questions, I don't think, right? If it's something about the guidelines, that's one thing, but many questions are really not objective. Asking for input from the rest of the group, just have to be careful that it doesn't take over the group if it's only of limited interest, of course, but if it's something that many people are thinking, which often it is, right? If one person brings it up, many times others are relieved because they had the same question and just didn't want to ask. So with certain open-ended questions, especially more personal ones, remind the group that advice is not something we encourage in a prayer group, right? We are not here to fix it. So that was sort of the point of the guideline in our group of we support as God heals, trying to say it in a positive way and refraining from judgment, that we don't try to fix it because we can't fix it, right? Anyway. Sometimes the question cannot be answered, and the person who asks may have to wait for the Spirit to provide an answer in the Spirit's own time. Also, of course, if we're trying to comment on people's comments, they can't hear themselves, right? Oftentimes they just have to say it, and God will show them. But we need to provide that open container for them. What to do when someone disagrees with you? If, say, it is an objective kind of answer, like, about thoughts, how you deal with thoughts in prayer, whatever it might be. Make sure you understood what they said once again. Affirm their right to their view. People do not have to agree, right? Speak from your personal experience. Oh, yes. And, if they're asking something that is, say, why do I need to pray for 20 minutes? I can't pray for 20 minutes. I can only sit for 2. Or, when I have thoughts like about the angels, or I think Mary is coming to me, or my late spouse who has a message for me, I'm listening. I'm not letting that thought go. Well, of course, this is not centering prayer, right? So it is worth saying, I think, that you do want to give, but that the guideline is to let thoughts go, but again, gently, not saying they're wrong, right? But again, I'm sure others in the group have had the same experience, that they haven't. And why do you always let them go? Maybe that's something to, again, talk about, but really just has to come with experience, I think. Responding to uncomfortable situations. So I'm sure we've all had these in group. Uncomfortable in what way? When people perhaps are trying to, they dominate the discussion, either from a desire to control, or they just have so much to share. They're theologically very erudite. They are having a very difficult time in their life right now. At least in our group, we do not stop it right there, because we don't feel comfortable sort of making people feel that they are not welcome. But if it's a one-off, fine. But we will then, if it's becoming a problem, we reshare the guidelines and the purpose and say, is this still what we think? And honestly, it has stopped every time. So agree or reaffirm the commitment that what are we here for? Faith sharing, i.e. not Bible study, not theological dissertations, not a therapy group, although we're helping each other, and personal life does get woven in, but not to the point. We want everyone to have time, right? Just consideration for one another. Review the sharing guidelines, whatever the issue is, crosstalk, etc. Trust that it will work out in God's time. Again, we can't fix it, right? We can't fix it. Just do your best to be present. And of course, the group all has to do that too, right? And utmost charity. This is something that the person who really founded this team emphasized to all of us, and it cannot be overemphasized. I think that if the group knows that all of us, but especially the facilitators, right, are open, accepting, and truly love and support them all, no matter what, right? Even if they are the person who's pressing your buttons, right? We've all got our buttons that sometimes get pressed, and we don't always let it go, right? Even when you're in the chair. So, but just go back and let it go. Just go back and, come back to that person. So growing as a facilitator, we've already alluded to some of this. Your commitment to prayer is absolutely paramount, right? One of the comments from registrants was, what happens when you have people in group who are not praying outside a group? They're praying once a week in group. It's really important, and I think Jim quoted this from his mentor, that the facilitator is the anchor of the silence in the group. You be silent, you pray. We all know what depth of prayer does for us and frequency of prayer. Be silent yourself, be comfortable with silence. Let the group, allow silence to separate people's comments in group and model that, right? And that's one of the things we tried to put in our guidelines too, because it's very easy for people to just jump up and think they have a positive comment or a validating comment, so they want to say right away. But it's hard to learn to just let it go and not make any comment that that's really what we're looking for here. To tolerate conflict and differences. We're not all going to agree, and that's okay. That's life. More training and learning to accept everything, right? Careful listening rather than smooth talking. It's very nice to be a smooth talker, but once again, as Michelle said, the most important thing is not what we speak or how erudite we are, how much we're authorities. Probably none of us are really that anyway, right? So just careful listening and providing that container for people to grow. Unanswered questions are okay. And if you model that, the group may pick that up. You're not an expert. Acceptance rather than dogmatism, once again, and utmost charity, again, cannot be overemphasized, in my opinion. So, and we will have time to address what very well may be your personal questions or your issues in group at the Q&A, but thank you very much, all of you. God bless. Oh, and yes, now we are going into small groups. Where can you discuss it? Well, we have an immediate opportunity. I know Michelle's thinking she forgot. Well, here she is. Just took me a minute. So the topic for small groups suggested to you is to recall a situation where you had a challenge in your group, or perhaps you were in a group as a participant that some of you I know have not facilitated, that worked out well. So we're thinking positive here, folks, right? What made it work out well, right? So think about that, talk about that. We will not have time, sadly, for every group to come back and share with the larger group, but we will have time for some. So if you could please designate someone to be the sharer within the group when we come back to the large group, that would be very helpful. So Mark will break us into small groups and we will go.
I'll get you guys into small groups in a second. You came in after we had set them up, so we'll get you in 1 minute here. Actually, maybe best if you just stay right here and have your group right here. Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourselves and you can have some conversation here. Are you guys able to unmute yourselves? You should be. Yeah, there you go. And this is your own small group right here in the main room.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, I guess there are three of us, Mark?
Yes, looks like that. Yeah, and you have
Okay.
about 15 minutes. And the question once again was to, I mean, you can go any way you like, but the suggested conversation starter is to recall a difficult situation, say in a centering prayer group that you've been in, that ended up having a good outcome, and how did that sort of come about?
Thank you. Okay. I guess the three of us. So since I don't know you, I don't think you know me. So should we introduce ourselves first?
Hey, I'm Elizabeth.
Hello?
I'm Elizabeth. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay. And where are you from?
I'm from San Antonio, and actually, I've been doing centering prayer, but I've only just started to facilitate, and I've only done it about 3 times. So I don't really have an experience yet where it's not, gone well. I mean, I don't have enough of a range of experiences. So I'm just going to listen.
Okay, well, thank you. And Laura, is that Laura or Lori?
Lori, yes. I'm Lori, and I'm zooming in from Virginia. I've done everything with centering prayer kind of backwards. I came into it through the back door, and I didn't even know about all the spiritual journey and the trainings and all of that until after I had started doing things. So I I didn't. I became a facilitator as a breakaway from a larger group. I was interested in doing a particular small group, so um, I just became a facilitator of that, and then I became the coordinator for our chapter. And one of the first things that I did was set up a training for facilitators because I knew that our chapter needed that. So, and then we ran that training this summer. So even though I've been facilitating, I'm very, very much a beginner. And I've had to deal with my discomfort. Well, first of all, starting a group and not having guidelines from the beginning, and then learning later that's a good thing to do. And dealing, with my own personality, my discomfort with wanting to keep everybody happy, and realizing through training that that really is not my job. So I've just been bumbling along and learning really good things along the way. But this question, I don't have a particular strong memory of something other than the few times when I've either spoken where I later regretted it, or not spoken and something beautiful happened. So that I just place that on the table.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. I see we have a couple of new ones. So I'm having a hard time reading Anne. Where are you from? You're mute. You're on mute.
Okay,
There
hi.
you go. Hi.
Good morning. I just came because I just came from an MRI, and I have to say a little thank you prayer that I was able to do it because last time I couldn't. So the good Lord, Holy Spirit was with me. So I have no idea what I'm supposed to say, but I'm happy that I got to be here. What am I? Oh, you wanted to know where I was from. I'm in San Diego.
San Diego. Oh, welcome. I'm in Redondo Beach, California. So we're
Okay.
in the same time zone.
Yes.
What we were doing, or we're invited to share an example from a group we have facilitated where we had a challenge, but that how we handled it turned out in a positive way.
Yeah, I have to say, I became facilitator by default, but I've been probably about 4 or 5 years, and I can't even begin to think of a challenge. My group is so beautiful. I'm so blessed, and the Holy Spirit just pervades our grouping. So we're pretty small. I don't know sizes of other people's. We're like maybe 10. If it was everybody, it would be maybe 12. But most of us come right after Mass in the morning, and we have a priest that gives the most beautiful, heartwarming homilies. So we're just blessed, and I have to say thank you to God and the Holy Spirit. And
Great,
yes.
thank you. I see a Vera's name here, but I don't see a picture. So Vera, are you with us? You're on mute if you are.
Oh,
There you-
yes, I'm here.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
welcome.
Thank you.
Did you?
I'm in Durham, North Carolina,
Okay, thank you.
and I don't think I was thinking of the question. Oh, let me see. Let me put my picture up. Okay. I've been facilitating for a while, and we had there was a gentleman in our group that was very challenging, and I was grateful for the guidelines that was shared this morning, and I guess it worked out well because we didn't really come into any confrontation or anything like that. We just basically let him speak his truth the way that he saw it, and neither agreed or disagreed with him, but allowed him the privilege of our listening to him. And that went on for a while, and he finally left and went to another group. So I guess that's turning out well. I'm not sure, but we still see him, and we still speak and give a hug when before COVID. So I guess that would fit. I think.
Very much, sure, very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think what you said is so sweet. You still see him and give him a hug. So
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's the whole answer right there is that it got healed in the way that God intended, not necessarily by something we had to do.
Right.
And I think you've all kind of expressed that in a way, your own way. So yes, so I guess I didn't introduce myself. I did tell you I'm from Redondo Beach, California, and I've been with Contemplative Outreach since 1985. So
Oh, wow.
I'm an old timer, and I was in Iowa for many years and moved out here to California in 2001. So I was very, very active with forming groups and getting groups started back in those early days in Iowa. And then by the time I moved here to California, I was in a little different place in my journey with contemplative outreach, and became more involved outside of California. So I'm on the staff currently with contemplative outreach, which, as you know, our home base was always New Jersey, but with technology, we don't have to live in the city where we work for contemplative outreach. So the staff are all over the United States, and one of our staff is actually in England, or Ireland, I mean. So that's how the evolution has happened for a lot of small groups as well, especially during Zoom. I think it's had the facilitator role change quite a bit for a lot of people, some who didn't have any experience with with Zoom and learned very quickly on the run, so to speak, and others who had groups who didn't want to move to Zoom particularly, and maybe lost members for a while and are going back to in person. So, but overall, the numbers or the what has seemed to happen for a lot of groups, especially with people in my age bracket, they have really appreciated Zoom because they don't have to drive somewhere or get leave an obligation with a spouse or somebody they're caregiving. There's a lot of that going on, so it's really moved us into a more of a variety of ways to facilitate than ever before. But the guidelines that some of you didn't find early, we didn't have in the very early days, but over the years were really put together out of experience, not from a book, so to speak. But contemplative outreach really isn't that kind of an organism. It's more meant to be, if you will, relate to the group that you're with instead of a one size fits all. There's every kind of a group that we can kind of imagine.
And
So
Marie, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to let you guys know that you have about 2 minutes before people will start entering back into.
Okay, and we have a new member. So Johnson, I want to introduce you. You want to introduce yourself? You're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, I am facilitator for Markham Unionville. I have been doing this for, I don't know, maybe 2004, so 18 years. And I'm currently also a commissioned presenter. Maria, I met you in 2003 when you came to Toronto for us to do the 20th anniversary of contemplative outreach.
Yes. So you're joining us from Canada, right?
I'm in Canada. I'm in Toronto.
Yes. I don't know if you know, but we met back then in those days.
Yes, we did.
In Toronto. Yes, a long time ago. I haven't seen you since. Oh my goodness. Small world, this contemplative outreach, as we have found. So I guess we were supposed to have somebody be our reporter back to the group. Would one of you like to volunteer to just say what we have done or not? I guess we're going back.
Back and they're ready.
Folks are still coming back, and for over the next 30 seconds or so, we should have everybody, I think.
Does it look like we're all back, Mark?
Looks like we got everybody back now.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Well, I hope you all had a good discussion. We had a very enlightening and good discussion in our little group. So we have about 10 minutes now, and unfortunately we don't have time for every group to share and bring back your experience, but really we'd like to hear from some of you if you feel you have something really special you'd like to share with the group. For those of you who can, maybe you could use the raise hand function. It'd be easy to see if you'd like to report back, and we'll do our best to identify people. If you don't know how to use that, you could shoot in the chat a message that you would like to report. So let's start with Kathy from Des Moines, Iowa.
So I was in a lovely group of people. We had a great conversation for the time that we had. We didn't really appoint a spokesperson, but I just want to share something from my own experience, which is during the pandemic, the longstanding group that I've been a part of went to Zoom, being on Zoom. And Zoom really has taken care of a number of problems that we had, might have had, and did on occasion have when we met in person. Because I think there's a different level of thoughtfulness that has to happen when you have people on the screen and you have to mute and unmute. People can't just interrupt so quickly or say something. It offers, it seems to me, a different level of consideration and thoughtfulness. So that's an observation of mine.
Thank you so much, Kathy. We always have to face what's happening on Zoom groups too, which are slightly different from in person. So thank you for that. Okay, let's go to Steve. We have about about 5 hands up, so I don't know if we'll be able to take any more. So we apologize. Okay, Steve.
Well, I hate to get too from Des Moines, but I agree with what Kathy just said, but I wanted to mention, I think somewhere, Michelle, it might have been you at the beginning, you talked about the goal of being to encourage people to the practice of twice a day, and I don't really know how to get into that. I stay away from the judgment of that. I take what happens. We got people that come every time on Zoom, 4 to 6 people, and I don't really feel comfortable asking people whether they're doing the practice twice a day. Did you want to say more about that? I do, certainly myself. It's not about myself as a leader, but the people in the group.
And maybe we can get to that more in the Q&A too, but just very briefly so we can hear from the other groups. I'm with you on being sensitive to that. I think if we're just clear that that's what we're there to do is support. And a lot of times it comes out in the sharing. People say, how are you doing with your practice? How are you getting that second sit in? So it's kind of a group support or influence, perhaps. And then once in a while remind the importance of your practice. And yeah, but I agree with handling it sensitively, but making it clear. We always say, that second sit is what really leads to our transformation, or really, the first one is to kind of give us some fuel, and the second one is to go deeper. And, so talk in terms like that, and maybe quoting some Father Keating. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Is it Eben?
It's Eben.
Okay, hi, Eben.
Hi. So I was meeting with Patricia from Wisconsin and Ina from South Africa. And we really, did not have much in the way of experiences to share in response to the prompt we were given. But we did have a lot more sharing to do. We agreed that it was really a gift in a group to have more than one facilitator, so that facilitators got to participate in the group both as a facilitator and a non-facilitator, as well as fill in for each other when one of us is away. And being able to be in the group from both perspectives, we think is very helpful in our learning to participate in both ways. And let's see, oh, in regard to getting used to Zoom, I think we pretty much all agreed that when we were in Zoom, it was good for everybody to be on gallery view so that while you were involved in the group and sharing, you could sort of watch everybody's faces and get cues into what, when somebody else was, interested in speaking or, that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you. Next is Frank Pindola.
Well, we had a great discussion also. I had one challenge that was a really tough one. We had at one point a person who really wanted to take over the group. He had a lot of experience as a leader, and he was used to leading. And he was also used to a charismatic style of prayer. So after a few times of trying to get on the same page, I just got together with him one-on-one, and I went over some of Father Thomas's writing on the charismatic movement and how centering prayer can fit into that. And after doing that with him one-on-one, he was very gracious, and he understood that we were taking a little bit of a different tack in centering prayer groups than he was used to. So that was, it was tough for me because he was kind of a high energy guy. But it brought me back to Father Thomas's work, and I realized that I did have support. I also had the support of my coordinator and mentor who kind of helped me through it. It all ended up working out pretty well.
So much for that. That's very helpful. Tom?
Yeah, our group had two subjects. The first was someone who brought up something controversial, and in this case, just like at Thanksgiving, religion and politics, And in each case, the example was that, we let them speak and didn't give it energy, so that everybody could, help give it a little silence and return back to the subject at hand of the meeting, of the gathering. So the other one was an example where the group kind of split on which direction to go. Do we do Lectio? Do we do a certain book? Do we, and what is our goal here? And in both cases, the groups said, let's throw an extra half hour in the beginning or end, allow those who want to participate in this extra activity to do it. And if you don't, we come at the normal time and we'll continue to do the things we do. So success in each case from being patient and kind and caring about each other. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Well, from you and the previous speakers too, you can hear the utmost charity coming through the approach in dealing with others in the group. Carol, you're our last hand. Carol, you have to unmute yourself if you can. Can you unmute yourself?
One of the topics we discussed was about people who are late to the group consistently. And some of the ideas we came up with would be if several people were late, you could discuss it as a group and sort of go back to your guidelines. If it is sort of chronic, one of the people said she, like a lot of centering prayer retreats, put a chair outside the door so that if they were more than 10 minutes late, she would close the door and they would have to wait and send her outside. And another way is to speak to the individual one-on-one, maybe after the group or for coffee or something, if the person doesn't seem to respond to other ways of getting there on time. So
Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much. Just in this brief sharing, I think we see how we really learn from each other, and we all have faced similar situations, and it's so helpful to hear how people have dealt with it, and that in fact there are good outcomes to these challenges. So we will take a 5-minute break now. And I think Mark may put up a timer. I'm not sure. If not, I'll sound the gong in 5 minutes, and we'll come back to each other to hear about resources.
Michelle, I put a note in the chat room.
Okay.
Make this small space work.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to now have our session on resource materials for facilitators and prayer groups. So I'm going to turn the session over to Jim Bailey. Jim, are you there?
So I thought I would talk by showing you the handbook as it currently exists. So I'm going to put that on the screen now. This one's when the handbook was first designed, everybody assumed that it would be printed out and handed out to participants in facilitator workshops. Well, at one point while we were doing revisions, people got the idea that it would be nice to supply links to where some of these resources resided on the Contemplative Outreach website. So we started doing that. And for me, all of a sudden, it became not a physical book that I would use, but something that I would call up on my computer so I could easily go to different spots of the Contemplative Outreach website. So I want to show you just what I mean by that. Here's the table of contents. And I'm going to go to what Eileen was talking about earlier, faith sharing. And so some of the material that she talked about is here in the handbook, and you can use it as a guide for that. And if you go on further, we have the topics, and it's divided into two things: selections appropriate for all levels, resources for getting started or a newly formed group, and resources for groups that have been together a little bit longer. And I'm just going to go to one of the files right now. So this is calling it up right from the Contemplative Outreach website. And this is a document that lists different resources. And once you call this document up, like you can go to different aspects that they talk about. Where to get it, invitation from God, that would take you to the store. And that's just like one of many resources. And I would invite you to spend time looking through the Facilitator Handbook and just clicking on some of the links and just seeing the things that you find. And a couple of people asked the question about like, how do you discover these resources? And the word that came to my mind for that is discovery. It's a process of discovery. And a lot of times people who read books or listen to music talk about that process. And you can do it in terms of coming up with things that you would like to read for a vestibule or for books that you could read in the group. And yes, you can go to the Contemplative Outreach website using the Facilitator Handbook to find some of these spots. But you can also talk to other people in your groups, in the larger Centering Prayer community, perhaps in your city. If you live fairly isolated and don't have a community like that, there's always the internet, the local library, churches, bookstores, anything like that where you can browse. I know my own experience is I have like a file on my phone that's in one of those note-taking programs or apps, and it's called Vestibules. And anytime I encounter like a small poem or something that sounds like it would really be good for a vestibule, I'll put it in there. And I get it from being in other small groups and listening to what people are reading. And I get it from doing searches on the internet. For example, typing in a Google search for silence and seeing what comes up. So there's all kinds of ways that you can find this stuff. And then it's, I think, helpful for me as I get older to really make note of these things, because if I wrote it down on a piece of paper, I would probably lose that piece of paper. And I like having it on my phone where I can just call it up on my phone when I'm getting ready to facilitate. And in terms of books, well, hopefully there'll be people in your group that are readers and can recommend things that have really resonated for them, and you can see if it would resonate for your group. And I did want to share a memory that I had. One time I did a retreat at Snowmass, and I went to the bookstore that the monastery operated, and I was looking at the books. And there at that time was a Brother Theophane. And I asked him, well, which of these Thomas Keating books would you recommend? And he said, oh, you know, don't bother with those. Let me take you over here. And he took me to the Buddhist session. These are the books that you should be looking at. So kind of keep it wide open about the things that you might consider for a group. So that's all I really have to say. Thank you.
I wonder, Jim, did you want to remind them about the resources for volunteers on the website?
Okay, let me go back to a screen share then. You know, I'm not going to be able to call it up right now. Sorry.
Okay, so many of you maybe, is it okay, Jim, if I just comment? Many of you may be familiar
Please,
with going to the Contemplative Outreach website. And at the top, you know, it has the different categories. And on resources, when you click on resources, there's a drop-down menu. And towards the bottom, it says volunteer resources. You click on that and a world opens up, especially of those of you who said you were really interested in contemplative outreach documents, etc. And so every category, and there's a facilitator section on the website. When you click on that, you'll see the handbook. You'll see a brochure for our team, the support team for facilitators. And then if you go back to the top, oh, he's getting it. If you, yeah, he's there, I think, yeah, the resource page. There's also a Q&A tab there. Yeah, okay, Jim's found it now, which is just such a valuable resource because there are questions and answers about all aspects of centering prayer and groups and other things. And you can search those questions and answers. There you go. Thanks, Jim. Thank you. Okay, that's all for now. If you have further questions, remember we have a questions session coming up with regard to that. And now we do go into that question and answer period, as a matter of fact. So how we're going to do this, and I hope it works well. It seems, if you know how to use the raise hand function, that is a really good way to get your question on the table. We've taken up quite a few questions, you know, from your advanced questions already in the presentations and in the report backs from the groups, but others you may have. You can also put them in the chat. I think Josie and Mark will help us review any chat questions. But for now, I see that Florence has her hand up. And if you have a hard time using the raise hand function, maybe Mark and Josie can be on gallery view. And if you're waving your natural hand wildly will maybe try to put you down on the list and alert me as well. So that's the process. I hope we can get through quite a few here. So let me call on Florence.
Thank you. One of the things that I've noticed is that different groups use a different format for their centering practice. And some have formal faith sharing embedded in that process. Some do it outside of the hour allocated to centering prayer. And I wondered if somebody could comment on whether there was a preferred format for the centering prayer period in terms of meeting the competing needs that groups often have.
Okay, I'm also going to remind the team too that any one of our team can take the mic and try to answer your question. Maybe I'll just start by saying a few things and others can add. The format is first of all, if you look in the handbook, Thomas Keating sets out what he would consider, a meeting could be, where there's always a period of centering prayer, and then the group decides then what happens after that. But he likes a section, I might say he, but many of us like the section of faith sharing, because that enables us to deepen our experience, our shared experience of the fruits of centering prayer with each other and inspire each other. Other than that, there's many samples of formats. Some are in the handbook, some we can send. Maybe we can send a little note on that after the meeting about, some have prayer, walk in between prayer, and that's it. Some use Lectio Divina, reading a book together, watching a video, sharing. There's not one format, so we should let the group usually talk about that. Does any of the other team want to add something, please?
In my small group, one person brought up that when things became challenging in faith sharing, they went to a format that did not involve faith sharing, and that addressed the problem. And another said that their group just has never done faith sharing, they simply pray together. And I have heard of groups like that, especially prior to going to work, for example. People that just have that half hour before they go to work, they pray together and that's it. So I don't think there's no wrong way as long as you're doing centering prayer, really. But yes, there are a variety of ways to do it.
I just wanted to share that also, the way our group started was it was started by our bishop. So we do it as part of evening prayer. But I'm also seeing a need for more of an interactive centering prayer. So I'm hoping to start another one that is more interactive.
And Michelle, I'll just share that I'm in a group that uses the soul friending or holy listening format. It works really well so that everybody has a chance to share. And that is also on the resources.
Thank you. I just want to thank Sharon. Sorry, Sharon, I didn't see you. Sharon is a new member, a brand new member of our team. So thank you for making yourself seen. Thank you. Okay, let's go to Richard.
Good. Okay. Let me lower my hand here. So I have two questions. The first one is to Josie Garnham. Could you please be kind enough to share the source of that beautiful reading that you shared with us before the centering prayer? Maybe even just put it in the chat.
I think Josie had to leave, and so we can ask.
I'm here.
Oh, you're back. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat, but it's in the Centering Prayer app. But I'll send you the link to it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Second question is, some of the material that was presented on the screen, is that available in print form, or somewhere where I can access it and read it at a later time?
Okay, two things on that. You would like the slides and things like
Well,
that.
yeah, like the stuff. Eileen's presentation was very, very well organized, very well presented, very orderly, and I would love to be able to go back and look at it again at my leisure. So is that available?
Now, two things. One, you will receive a copy of the recording in a couple weeks, and so the slides will be embedded in that recording. And secondly, a lot of the material from the slides comes from the Facilitator Handbook.
Okay,
So that's your second source for that.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Richard. Tom Smith?
Hi.
Hi.
I also have two questions, but hopefully they're quick. First of all, I have used the Facilitator Handbook over the years and have found it to be an incredibly helpful document. And I'm wondering, have there been any updates recently to it? And as updates are made, how do we find out about those updates? That's my first question.
Okay, yes, it is updated, especially the links are always checked. And Jim may want to add this because Jim is our wonderful person who keeps track and of the updates. We've gone through editing type updates of content and material, but also updating just as things change in contemplative outreach or names or links. And that is done, they're online. The version that you go to online under the contemplative outreach website will always be up to date with the latest links. Jim, is that correct?
It is correct. And I've been trying to think of a way where we could let people know what version they're looking at on the website. Because right now, the current version on the website is dated May 2022, but there's no way of really seeing that unless you downloaded the document. So think of that as something that our group will be working on. My thought is over the last several years since we did a major revision is we've been updating it about twice a year.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you. The second question is, what's the best way for facilitators who are not in your database, in the service team's database, to let you know who they are and get into your database? I think I'm in it because I have an account on the website, but I've spoken to some facilitators who are not on it, and they were just wondering how do they get into your database so that you can communicate like events like this going forward.
Marie Howard, I see, is with us. I don't want to put you on the spot, Marie, but maybe you could help with that one.
I didn't hear your question, Michelle.
Okay, sorry. This gentleman is wondering how facilitators who are not already in the contemplative outreach database as a facilitator. I don't know if your question means you want to be identified as a facilitator in the database, or you just want to make sure you're on the contemplative outreach mailing list, or that you subscribe to their communications.
Okay, well, specific to this event, I spoke to a facilitator. This is just an example. I spoke to a facilitator in our chapter and said, "Have you heard of this event?" And they said, "No, we haven't heard of it." And so I was wondering, how do we let you know? What's the best way to let you know that there's a facilitator who would like to receive future notification of things like this? And I would think that probably every chapter has facilitators who are not on the database.
Will. Okay, hi, Tom.
Hi, Marie.
One of the things that we've always had in the past is the impossibility to keep up to date with facilitators, because so they're not listed as facilitators in the database. The coordinators are all listed, and it's really one of the duties of the coordinator to alert all of their facilitators when there would be an event like this. So that's the hope, that the communication chain comes locally from the coordinator to all of the facilitators, because facilitators come and go and change so much. And we tried early on to keep up with that, and it's just not possible. So the rule of thumb is through the coordinator, keep the coordinators, and we can keep reminding the coordinators maybe of that when we send out a notice for an event like this. So
Okay.
that would be the better way, Tom, that, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And I can confirm that. I happen to be a coordinator of our chapter, and I did send it out to all of our facilitators. Also, you can have them subscribe to The Voice, which is a contemplative outreach publication for all volunteers, and they can subscribe to the e-bulletin as well, and you can find that on the contemplative outreach website.
Yes, Michelle, thank you for that. That is a new way also, Tom, of individuals who are in any kind of a leadership role at all. They can subscribe to The Voice, which comes out quarterly. There'll be one the end of October. And these kinds of things are always listed in The Voice months ahead, as soon as we find out on dates. So that would be another way individuals can also keep themselves informed through The Voice.
And how do they subscribe to The Voice?
You can subscribe online. There's a way of doing that, and I don't have that on my fingertips, but you can also contact Donna at office, the word office at coutreach.org, and have your request to be added to The Voice.
Thanks so much, Marie. It was so nice to see you there. Okay, so we have a short time. We have 3 hands, so let's see if we can manage to get through our 3 hands before Bob gets a chance to do his presentation. So if you could present your questions. So Tom Brown?
And my question is about new people. We have a group with a range of experience from 1 year to maybe 20. And when we introduce a new person, we typically get them into open mind, open heart, and go through that. But it's a continuous cycling back to that book. I know a lot of people get kind of bogged down in the first chapter. Just wondering how you would recommend when a new person joins an existing group, what kind of techniques have you used to get them up and started without slowing down the rest of the group?
Eileen?
Yeah, honestly, we just, usually if we know a new person is coming, or if they come and, it's a surprise, the other facilitator or myself will meet with them either before, if we can, in advance, or after, and just present the 4 guidelines, hopefully give them a copy of the brochure. If we're on Zoom, so, maybe a link to the 4 guidelines in the brochure on the method of centering prayer. And really try to keep it as succinct as possible in the beginning, but yes, give them links to resources. If we're doing Lectio, same thing. If you're in person, give the brochure. If you're not, then give a link to the methods of Lectio that are on the website. And of course, particularly focus on whatever is used in your group. And we honestly don't do more than that, but we are mindful that if we have new people in the group, we center for 20 minutes rather than for 25 or 30, which we would more typically do because most of the group is very experienced. But with someone who's really brand new to any kind of silent meditation, we would just keep it to 20, and be mindful to maybe ask them after, what was your experience? Do you have questions, kind of thing? And then the rest of it, not spend the whole group time on that, of course, but then the rest of the group could help them a little bit. So that's how we do it. If that's helpful.
All right, thank you.
The only thing I would ask, just having a warm welcome, that they feel safe, that they know that they can share and be heard without judgment. Okay, Molly?
This is just a comment. Somebody commented how useful it was to see other centering prayer groups. And I have to say the existence of the meditation chapel for our group, which is geographically not close to anybody else, has just been so helpful to be able to just drop in on a variety of other, or one particular centering prayer group, and also to hear resources of what things they may use as vestibule prayers. So I just think that's just a wonderful resource that we have as facilitators.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you for that. Yes. Farley?
Yeah, thank you. I've been facilitating groups for a while. I don't know if I'm listed as a facilitator, and I didn't know anything about the coordinator. I'm wondering who is the coordinator, or how I would find out who the coordinator is for my part of the country, which is upstate New York.
So you can go on the Contemplative Outreach website for I think it's under contacts. Maria, you're shaking your head, yes. And it'll have all of the coordinators listed in which part, where they are and their contact information.
Thank you.
So good luck, all the best. Okay, Christine, you came with your hand up, but yes, please. This is the last one, unfortunately, Christine. Are you there, Christine?
Christine,
Sorry, needed to unmute. Regarding a new person joining the prayer group, the pamphlet Meeting One-on-One, often on the calendar, on the Contemplative Outreach Limited calendar, there is a Zoom introductory workshop. And we've found that people who attend the workshop really have a very deepening experience to what centering prayer is. So that's something they can do too.
Yes, thank you so much for reminding us of that. I think it's always good to ask people if they've had the introductory workshop, and if not, to help them find one that they can attend. Okay, we have to move to Bob, but Steve, do you have something really short?
I just wanted to quickly say that the e-bulletin that comes out from the Contemplative Outreach is quite good too. There are a lot of people, for instance, that practice mindfulness and may wonder the difference between mindfulness and centering prayer. And there's a wonderful little statement about that. So I just wanted to let people know, if you're not getting that e-bulletin, it's worth looking at.
I second that. The e-bulletins, the question and answers, the voice. Yes, thank you, Steve, so much. Okay, well, I know we always talk about having a session just with questions and answers, and maybe we'll do that one time.
Michelle?
Yes?
Can I just interrupt real quick? I just wanted to make everybody aware that if you go into the chat, on the bottom right-hand corner, there are 3 dots. If you hit the 3 dots, you can save the chat.
Thank you.
And there's lots of references in there and how to get the voice and that kind of thing.
Wonderful. Thank you for that reminder, Sharon. Okay, I want to turn to Bob now.
I'm sorry, how do you save it again, please?
Okay, you go to chat.
Yes.
And beside the message, there'll be 3 dots. And sometimes at the bottom, there's 3 dots as well that will save the whole chat. If you click on that, it'll say save chat. Otherwise,
okay.
You can take a picture or a screenshot of it if it.
Yeah, I think that'll have to be, because it's not.
Okay. Well, let's see. For some reason, I was going to share my PowerPoint, but it's not setting up right. So it's going to take me 1 second to reset that. So let me just do that real quick.
Okay, while you're doing that, somebody asked earlier if we had an idea of how many of you facilitated online and how many in person. And I don't know, we can't see everybody at once, but maybe before we close, we'll kind of do a scan and people can raise their hand in one group or the other. I wanted that person to put that in chat to let them know I saw it. Well, there goes Bob. Okay.
Okay, let me try sharing this PowerPoint. So what we wanted to do, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And we wanted to close with a reference to the vision statement and the principles and guidelines that were so beautifully written, and just share a very short, it's only a 1.5-minute video with you of Father Thomas speaking about servant leadership. So this is how we wanted to close the day. And just to remind you that we are going to offer another session like this, February the 11th. It's another Saturday morning. And so, we'll continue this. So thank you for being here. So the vision statement and the principles and guidelines, all of these are accessible in the handbook and also on the national website. And this vision statement has personal meaning for me because I remember when I was doing spiritual direction with David Frenette one day, I said to him, well, I only have two things to do with my remaining days. One is continue to spiritually awaken and try to be helpful to others. And he goes, oh, the two great commandments. And I went, oh, yeah, that's right. So I want to encourage you to share the vision statement and the principles and guidelines. Some groups do it each time they meet so that it becomes a living, breathing thing and not just this remote document. And that has certainly helped me in my groups to do that. And then I just want to pick out one of the principles to share with you. So here you see the principle number 13. Following the teachings of Jesus, we endeavor to exercise leadership in a spirit of service, utmost charity, and unity. So that phrase, utmost charity, is very meaningful to a lot of us. Leadership is a necessary function of the human condition and of society. Following Jesus' example and teaching, we aspire to exercise leadership as a way of serving, of taking the lowest place, of living ordinary life with extraordinary love. So let me see here. Oh yeah, and then just to complete that phrase, utmost charity, is more than ordinary charity. It is to love one another as Jesus has loved us. That is, with all our faults, limitations, and at times outrageous behavior. It is to forgive completely and from the heart everything and everyone, including ourselves. This is the path to unity. So one thing that I know Marie Howard does this with our cost group. We do it with our circle of service here in Denver. At the beginning of each meeting, we read one of these principles and guidelines, and then we share briefly about it. And so you can do that at the beginning of your groups. I have a group that does this at the beginning of each. Before we do our centering prayer, we just reflect. It only takes a few minutes, and that way you become familiar with the principles and guidelines, and they, as I say, they become sort of living, breathing documents. And then I wanted to see if I can successfully do this. I want to try to share with you this short video by Father Thomas.
Our own spiritual life has to be a combination of this capacity for solitude with God and communion and service of others. Service is considered the best practice to further the interior life because it's closest to the idea of alert receptivity and passivity that is not just emptiness, but openness to the inspirations of the Spirit. We see that Jesus emphasized servant leadership to his apostles over and over again. A real leader is the one who's the servant of all. So servant leadership is an expression of our realization that everyone else is not only equal but probably better than us, and that whatever we do for others is not to fix them, which presumes that we know how to fix, or even to help them, which indicates we're in a superior position, but is the privilege of serving them in gratitude as members of this body that is being transformed into God and in which God dwells.
So just as a reminder, this particular video is available on YouTube, including the transcription for those of you who would like to review that. And so, just to revisit a couple of his words, our own spiritual life has to be a combination of this capacity for solitude with God and communion and service with others. So that's what we as facilitators are doing, and has been, as has been mentioned, our own centering prayer practice is the most, Thomas says, it's the most important thing to enable us to be facilitators. And service is considered the best practice to further the interior life because it's the idea of, it's closest to the idea of alert receptivity. I just love that statement. Jesus emphasized servant leadership to his apostles over and over again, and Thomas used to emphasize this: a real leader is the one who is the servant of all, and he mentions that in this video. And that whatever we do for others is not to fix them, which presumes that we even know how to fix them or even help them, which puts us in a superior position. It's the privilege of serving. And then I want to just call your attention to our team leader was Nestor de Armas, and he loved this phrase, and it stuck with me. No one cares how much we know until they know how much we care. So that is bringing just the concept of utmost charity into the circle. And he literally lived that. I remember when Nestor and I were doing a facilitation workshop, I was worried about making sure the slides and everything were all set up properly. And he said, no, this will take care of itself. I want to go meet the people that are coming in. So that's how he did it. And it was a good model for me. So that's the most important thing, that we do our practice and focus on the people. So that's all I have to share. Thank you so much for being here. Turn it back over to you, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you for letting us experience Father Thomas again. Well, this couple of hours has just flown by. Here we are at the end of the time. So it's for me to express the whole team's gratitude to each and every one of you. We always say that we're each other's teachers, and I really felt that today. So thank you again, and I add to Bob's thanks for all of you to be here. And I want to thank, of course, Bob and Eileen and Jim and Josie and Sharon. It's just such a privilege to serve on the team with them. And just thank you so much.
And February the 11th.
Yes, and we're doing another session on February 11th, 2023. We will use a lot of what we received from this group in advance, and we'll try to fashion something that also continues to meet your needs. Don't be shy about letting us know what you want us to do. We covered that you'll see the video, the slides and everything when you get a copy of the video in a couple of weeks. You can look for that. You will also receive some further handouts when we have a follow-up email. For example, I have a little discernment for facilitators. We don't have time for me to go through it now, but you will get it, and it's a wonderful reflection prayer sheet for you as you renew your commitment each day to your service. I saw a hand up. James, do you have something you really want to say to us before we go? James Bell? No. Maybe it's a mistake that your hand is up. Okay, well, he's not able to unmute her. All right. Is there anything else I forgot, team, any announcements to make? I think we're good. And I would like to offer a closing prayer as we leave each other. God of the silence, calm and quiet my soul at the fount of your loving presence. In your silence, replenish me with a force for love, especially for those who are the most demanding. where there is nowhere else to go. Inspire me to drop into my heart and find your life-giving grace there, weaving the fabric of human reality into a tapestry of love. Amen.
Amen.
And all of your faces on the screen are indeed a tapestry of love. Just thank you so much. So go in peace and love. Farewell to everyone. We look forward to seeing you. Have a very grace rest of 2022.
Thank you.
See you in 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You all.
I know. Wonderful.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Mark for being our host.
Oh, I know.
you, Mark.
That's what I forgot. No, thank you, Mark, and for all the technical support, being with us every step of the way. Thank you.
You.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye,
you, Marie,
Marie.
for
Thanks for
joining
being here,
us. So
Marie.
nice to see you, Marie.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Sharon, for coming.
Yeah, hi, Sharon.
Sorry, we can't hear you, Marie. I can see you talking.
Yeah, Marie, you're muted.
I was muted. I said thank you. It took me a long time to get in, but I finally made it thanks to Mark. So I had a little computer snaggeroo.
Sorry about that, Maria. I didn't see the text until we were well into it.
Well, it was okay. I enjoyed the impromptu small group also very much.
Right.
It was just a real treat. Really was. So thank you all. Yeah, you all did a great job, and as always. And I really, really thought the flow and the way you concluded, and Bob, again, thank you for bringing Thomas back into the picture. It was very meaningful, I think, to conclude that way. So everybody did a really good job. So thank you all. I'm glad that I have to tell you one little joke. Somewhere along the line, I saw that this was going to be 7 o'clock my time in Pacific time. So I set my alarm and I got up at 6 and I got dressed and I got my coffee made and I have to make my bed, because I'm here in my bedroom and I'm all ready. And so then I go to my computer at probably it was about 6:30, and Mark's got his new link up for me and it was like 8:30. So I had plenty of time to wake up because I was ready 2 hours early. And so by the time I got here, it was almost time for a nap for me. But I woke up very soon. So I thank you all. But I almost gave up because I spent way over a half an hour, rebooted 3 times on my AOL, was just not letting me in today. But finally, a miracle happened and there I was. So thank you. And again, thanks, Mark, for all your help. So, and thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Marie.
It's so nice to see you all. So thank you.
Thanks for being here.
God bless Marie. Take care.
Bye-bye. I'll say goodbye so you can do your talking.